Welcome to another episode of The Pebble in My Shoe. It's lovely to have you with me again. The pebble in my shoe is an analogy for an inner niggle or knowing that becomes so insistent that we have to pay attention. We can ignore it only for so long and eventually have to stop to investigate it, listen to it, and honour what it's telling us. I'm fascinated with the process of personal growth, and so in the conversations, we unpack the stories using an inquisitive lens to capture the pivotal moments, the internal shifts, and the actions that are taken that ultimately lead to living more authentically. My intention for the conversations here is to inspire or offer hope to those of you who resonate with the stories shared, that you will hear something that supports you on your own journey, and if there's a pebble in your shoe, that you'll find the courage to make the changes that align you closer with your authentic self. Thanks for being here, and let me introduce today's guest. Anita Collins is a wife, a daughter, a sister, a friend, a mother of three, a teacher, an obsessive learner, a housekeeper, a writer, and recently an entrepreneur. She says she is spinning a lot of plates, and that's putting it mildly. Alongside her regular home and work commitments, she runs Efficient Family Life, her business on social media. She has written 2 books, Saving with Sinking Funds and The Organized Family, which are selling on Amazon, and she's currently working on her 3rd book in the Organized Family series. She has a regular teaching job teaching secondary school maths, and she also runs online maths lessons and revision courses. She recently launched the Maths Exams Expert on Instagram. So I'm delighted to welcome Anita. Hi, Anita.
Hello, Miffy. How are you today?
I'm really good. You're so welcome to the Pebble in My Shoe podcast. And thank you so much for coming on and being a guest.
You're very welcome. I'm delighted.
Just give us a brief introduction of yourself, please.
So I am a 44-year-old woman living in Limerick City. I am the mother of 3 children, 14-year-old Juno, 12-year-old Ollie, and 5-year-old Malaya. My husband is Connor. We're both teachers. I'm a secondary school teacher. My subjects are maths and Irish, and I'm just teaching maths at the moment. I suppose the biggest part of my life has been spent overseas. Not the biggest part, but a large part of my life has been spent overseas. I was 20 years overseas. I left when I was 22, got a one-way flight to London, and met my husband there, and then we just kind of continued moving around a bit, and our children were all kind of born while we were overseas, expat teachers, and we came home 3 years ago to be closer to family, and it has been a great decision and a great move, and I'm so happy to be back in my own place, my own country, back home.
Lovely. Well, welcome home.
Thank you.
So, Anita, we're here to talk about pebbles in our shoes. Mm-hmm. And I suppose curious then, how does a pebble in your shoe manifest?
So, Miffy, I think the pebble in my shoe is a need for busyness that I have been experiencing for a long time. I haven't gotten the pebble out yet. There's a bit of this manic need to be moving forward, to be learning, to be progressing, to be in some area of my life, and the area of my life will change every couple of years, but there's always this kind of manic busyness and this need to be moving forward. Maybe like the words toxic productivity come to mind, and I don't know, did I read that phrase, or have you heard that phrase, Miffy, toxic productivity?
I've heard of toxic positivity, but toxic productivity is new to me, but it does make sense.
I think I made it up, Miffy. Do you think, can I take the credit for this?
Take the credit for it, Anita. I'm going to give you credit for it. And if anybody else wants it, they're going to have to come and fight us for it, okay?
You heard it here first. I need to copyright this one. Toxic productivity. So I have always been a person that's up at the crack of dawn, and I've always prided myself on the fact that by 9 o'clock, the floors are mopped and the bread is made, and I've written a chapter of the book. You know what I mean? And I've always taken great pride in that. But as time goes on, it's kind of it's moved out of the early morning and kind of moved into the rest of my day, and it's become, I think, something that's it is where I am now, and it's where I'm keeping myself, but I don't think it's maybe very good for me in the long term. So that's why I think it's a pebble, is that it is a niggle. There's a realization kind of coming in the last maybe year or two that maybe this isn't sustainable, and maybe it shouldn't be something that I try to sustain. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And it's really refreshing actually to hear you speak so honestly about this, because I think this glorification of busy is something that we've all been sort of smit with
Definitely.
in various roles and jobs, and I can identify with that whole thing of like, look how hard we're working, as being some kind of accolade. But what I'm really interested in, because what I'm hearing is a huge amount of self-awareness there, that you're aware that this is a pebble in your shoe. You're aware that maybe while it's actually something that you prided yourself on for so long, and like all things, that can be a really good virtue, let's say, or quality or strength, and yet, like anything, it can be out of balance. And what you're identifying there is that it's out of balance. But the bit I'm curious about is, how do you know that it's a pebble in your shoe? Like, how does it show up in you that you're kind of going, what's making you think that maybe this isn't so healthy?
Okay. So whatever it is I'm into at any given time, I am all in, right? So, and it has changed over the years. And when anyone goes all in on something, it definitely has an impact on those around them, and it has an impact on other things of their lives. And you have to make space for the thing you're obsessing about. You have to make space for it by letting other things go. So I think that, hang on, repeat your question one more time now so that I'm clear that I'm answering the right.
Yeah, well, it's just that whole thing that you're clear that this is how you are.
Yeah.
And you're clear that maybe it's not sustainable, is what you described it as.
Yeah.
This busyness and this up at crack of dawn and getting so much done in the day.
Mm.
But what I'm curious about is how you know that it's not sustainable. What are the signs in you?
Okay. It's because I am feeling more and more guilty about the time it's taking me away from my family. I feel that on an emotional level. I'm also made aware of it by my youngest, who now says things like, "Mommy, can you put your phone down? I'm talking to you," and I also am aware of it from a logical point of view, in that I know that in general people work a regular 5-day week, and then they do the housework at the weekend or whatever. Whereas I'm working crazy hours. Like I know that the hours that I'm working are not sustainable, and it makes me, 7 days a week. And so from a very practical viewpoint, and looking at this from the outside, if you were to count up the hours, surely it can't be good. We're not built for this. And you talk about the glorification of busy.
Okay.
And I've been aware of this for some time, and have been very consciously not putting that message out there. Because I really do think that as a society, we have, and women especially, I don't think men do this. Women do this. Am I allowed to say that? Is that sexist? I'm not sure. But anyway, women do this all the time, right? Where we meet someone and we say, "Oh, how are you getting on?" And they say, "Oh God, I'm flat out. I've had such a busy week. I had this and this." And then I will automatically feel the need to come back with, "Oh, I know what you mean. Last week I had this, and then this week I had that." And we're out competing each other with how busy we are. And I have been aware of that now for a while, and have been deliberately not putting that out there, and saying, "Oh yeah, no, it's fine. Put away, everything's grand." Imagine a situation where we met somebody and said, "How are you?" And they said, "Oh, great. I just watched telly for 2 hours this morning. Then I had a nap." And then I come back with, "Wow, good for you. I'm going ordering a takeaway tonight because I can't be bothered cooking." And, and we don't talk like that. We outcompete our work. We don't outcompete how we look after ourselves.
Oh, can we pause with that? I love what you've just said. Sorry to interrupt you, but you've just said,
I'll never be able to beat it. You put me under pressure now.
We outcompete our worth, but we don't outcompete our What was the last bit?
We outcompete our work.
Our work. Okay.
But should we change it to worth? Is that better? Maybe
We
that's
can.
better.
This is my podcast, so we can do whatever we want, right?
We can do whatever we want. Yeah. And we've already discussed the fact that we need to copyright a number of phrases.
Yes,
so let's
absolutely.
get this right. Outcompete our work is what I was thinking, how busy we are.
Yes, okay.
But really, we should be out competing each other in terms of how we look after ourselves.
Okay, yes, lovely. That's beautiful. That is just so beautiful. So I really love that idea, Anita, because I totally get that. We buy into a narrative, and that narrative you're describing is the one of, oh, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. Look at how great I am. And we're not doing it consciously to make ourselves look so great and, you know, and so productive. But it is this cultural norm. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to capture that, Anita, because it struck me as being very profound that we need to start celebrating each other for the self-care.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And I'm conscious of that when I speak to people. But I don't practice what I preach in my own life. And I definitely feel that the amount I'm doing is too much. It's too much. Yeah. So that's basically my pebble. And the way you asked how I know it's becoming a problem, and it is, because definitely the time I'm spending with my children is less than it was. Now, I know we have busier lives here than we did when we were overseas. We are much, much busier here. But things like the board games now have become much, they're few and far between, when it was something that we used to do all of the time. And I plan dates with each of my individual children, which I love, and it's great.
I want to bring the listeners up to speed, because we don't know each other incredibly well, but we do know each other a bit. And I do know that what you haven't talked about is, like, you've in your introduction, you said how you're a teacher. And so the assumption then is that that's what you do. So you're teaching, secondary school maths and so on. But you also then have gone on to describe how you're busy then at weekends and in the evenings and so on, and on your phone. So can you tell us a little bit about what your side hustle is?
It's interesting that I forgot to mention that at the beginning, and I'm trying to, I wish that was part of who I am, but it clearly isn't ingrained yet. I still just see them as side hustles and an extra little thing, but I would like them to be more than that. So what I have been working on for the last number of months is, I started an Instagram. No, wait, now I'll go back to the start. I decided I wanted to write a book on how you can use sinking funds to really revolutionize how you deal with money and your relationship with money, because it was so transformative for me when I moved back to Ireland, and we went from expat teachers on a Western wage living in an Asian country to then back here, not full-time. I was part-time teaching, and I had to learn some money management skills very quickly. And the sinking funds idea was like an absolute game changer for me, and still is. The absolute linchpin. Is linchpin the right word? Key point, linchpin of how I manage my money. And I really, when I spoke to people about it, people were into it and were impressed and took it on board and reported back to me. So I thought, I want to write this down. So I wrote a book. And then I thought, well, who's going to buy my book? Like, don't you need an online presence for anything these days? So I said I'd start an Instagram. And I just thought, oh, it'll just be a small thing. It'll just be a small thing. Oh my God. Shouldn't it? Like, anybody who's ever started social media, and now I have the Facebook, the Instagram, and the TikTok. Jeez, God Almighty, you'd be warned from it. But I do enjoy it. And I loved actually learning it. And I'm I'm definitely enjoying the process of learning it and enjoying getting better at it. So then I realized that, well, you don't just open an Instagram and thousands of people follow you and then they all buy your books. There's so much more to it than that, and you have to nurture them, and you have to do all this kind of thing. And so then I started writing another book, and I really had to then put my time into growing my social media presence, and that is what I'm currently working on. So Efficient Family Life then got started, and I wasn't quite sure what it was, other than a place to put my ideas on how you can manage your money well, how you can manage family life well, how you can be more efficient with your time, how you can be more productive, so all things busy modern family, basically, was what I was thinking. So efficient family life then became an awful lot of work and enjoyable work. And I was trying to use it to promote my book. And then I finished another book and about how you can use Google Keep. And just the Google apps in general are an absolute like lifesaver for us on a daily basis. Our lives really are quite busy, aside from the side hustles that I'm trying to do. Our lives with we have 3 kids in 3 different schools, like, you know what I mean? And so there's a lot. And so myself and my husband keep ourselves on track with everything using the Google apps. So I wanted people to know about that. So I wrote that book, and then that got going. And then I'm currently writing one on Google Calendar, and all this stuff is all busy, and it's all stuff that's moving me forward, and I'm enjoying doing it. And I want it to be bigger. I would like to be running courses down the line on teaching people maybe how to manage their money, household budgets, household finances, and just regular day-to-day things. Like, I'm not a financial advisor or a financial expert, but I am a maths teacher, and I am really interested in family finance issues. So, and just with my teaching skills and everything, I really do think I have that in me to deliver a good course that I think people need. As Irish people, we don't like to talk about money. And I think when you do talk to people about money, you realize that there are a lot of people who don't even know about living within their means. I heard Owen McGee say recently on one of his podcasts that 1 in 3 Irish families have to use credit for going back to school in September. Now, that's a really shocking statistic, and I think could be avoided to a large extent. And I don't in any way wish to diminish the hardships that people are having at the moment, but I do think that there are ways we could be better with our money. And I do think I have the skills to run a course and help people with that. I also think I can help people with household organization and life admin and stuff like that. So I see those in my future. The other then side hustle that I've got going on is that it was Paddy's Day. We had the Monday off, didn't we? And so sure, if I am given 5 minutes to sit, there's going to be another idea, and then there'll be another list of jobs, and then this manic busyness I was talking to you about, this constant need to be moving forward. So it was the bank holiday Monday, and I woke up, and one of the first thoughts I had was, I'm going to do revision classes for Leaving Cert. And honestly, Miffy, I think my husband and the kids might have been up the north or something. I can't remember, but I seemed to have time to myself that day. By the end of the day, I had all the Gmail set up. I had my logo made. I had my website half built. I bought the domain name, just crazy. The Instagram was set up, and now I've spent the last few months developing that, and that's going really well, right? But I'm planning all these lessons for the first time. I have the skills, but I haven't got the online lessons created. So these are the things that are taking my time. I definitely, as a teacher, I know that the Irish people do not want to hear teachers complaining about being busy. I know this, right?
Don't you have the best job in the world, Anita? You have all the holidays and everything. I'm being sarcastic here.
I know, but you don't. But you're right. We do have the best job in the world. My father, down through the years, he's a farmer, and I used to come home in the summer, and I'd be sitting at the table in the morning, 10 o'clock in my pajamas, drinking my cup of tea, and my father would look over, and he'd say to me, "Are you getting paid right now while you're sitting here drinking that cup of tea?" I'd say, "I am. I sure am." And he'd always touch and go, "Jesus, to some country." But then I'd always come back and say, life choices, dude. Life choices. You gave me this opportunity and I took it. Yeah. And so I wouldn't deny for a second what a great life I have as a teacher.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I also take ownership of the fact that I was lucky enough to be able to make the choice, and I made it. And I appreciate it every single day. The gift I have being able to work with these outstanding young people. And I love when I'm in my job so much. But I really love June, July, and August.
Absolutely. And why wouldn't you? I think this is great. And again, it's going back to what we were saying earlier, though, isn't it? About that begrudgery and that glorification of busy. And, isn't it well for you? You're off June, July, and August, as if you're not working. Something you said before we came on was about how you love being in a classroom with teenagers. Now, for me, that would be no fault to any teenagers. I know I love you all, but I don't want to be in a classroom full of teenagers. That for me is just no thank you.
No, it lights me up. It is definitely a very, very special thing. It doesn't always, but I find myself in a lucky position now at the moment, and where I am, like I have always worked hard at my subject knowledge, and I've always worked hard at trying to be a better teacher than I was the year before. And I now feel I'm in a position where I'm teaching higher level leaving cert, and I teach the international. We run the IB curriculum as well, and I'm teaching the international baccalaureate curriculum. And so I really am teaching kids who are so invested and so keen to learn and keen to move forward. And I'm buzzing off it, like love it this year. Bit nervous about Pranks Day tomorrow, I don't mind admitting. I'm going to have to leave my bike at home from school tomorrow and drive because, yeah, I've been warned already that I might be looking for a spare wheel by the end of the day. But it's great, yeah. But look, this is it. And I'm going to be marking Leaving Cert papers in the month of July, and all of these things that I just keep taking on. And the pebble in my shoe is not those things. I enjoy every single thing I do. I don't do anything I don't want to do, Miffy, you know? I don't iron. I don't go to the gym. I don't do things I don't want to do. Everything I'm doing, I love.
Mm.
The niggle is this growing realization that even though I'm enjoying it, I don't think my youngest child particularly, I don't think she's always enjoying it. And I also, when I think rationally about it, surely this is not sustainable. I'm worried it's going to end badly. Yeah. Yeah.
First off, Anita, that's just so honest. Like I've said it to you already, I really appreciate your honesty. You're so open about all this, you know, because this is very close to your heart, and you're clearly really passionate about everything that you do. And I love that you don't do things you don't want to do. I love that everything you do, you love. But I'm also hearing that it's not sustainable, and that's the niggle for you. That is the bit that it's not going to end well if you keep going at this speed and trying to do all the things that you love. There's some kind of power in it, I'm feeling, you know, around realization. Okay, so I have all these plates spinning, and which ones do I have to let fall or something?
I don't know. The other thing that I know about myself, Miffy, is that I am spinning a lot of plates. I know something has to give, but I'm not yet prepared to make any changes. I'm not prepared to drop any of those plates just yet. I don't really want to. But then I just have that guilt about my children, and, you know, the fact that I am not spending as much time with them as I'd like to. I do think back to previous generations and how we were parented. And I do think we, in general, give our kids so much of our time in comparison with the time that our parents had available to give. We do give a lot, and the expectations on us as parents are ridiculously high. And so for my older two, I don't feel so bad. They definitely did get a lot of me when they were smaller.
Yeah.
Now, Miffy, they don't want to know about me now. They have retreated to their caves, and I'm hoping I'll get them back sometime in the next few years. But my smallest girl deserves more of me than she's getting. So I think it's the guilt is bothering me. But the reality is, Miffy, is that I do want to keep doing what I'm doing. And I think I'm struggling to reconcile those two things.
Yeah. And I hear it. And it's funny, I was listening to some podcasts this morning, and I can't remember which one of the guests it was, because I listened to 3 in a row, and they were all amazing women, interviewed by Lorna Lyons on her Side Hustle Moms podcast. But one of the ladies said, you have to work like you're not a mom and be a mom like you don't work. That came back to me there when you were just talking, because that's sort of what you're describing in a way. And this guilt, then we have a guilt about all the things we're doing, whether it's sustainable. We have a guilt around neglecting our kids or not spending enough time with our kids. And it's all sort of guilt related, and I should be doing more somewhere
definitely
else or something. Yeah,
absolutely. It is a lot. And where I am with it now, Miffy, is that I'm very goal-oriented, and I'm very much about kind of the rules, and what I say I'm going to do, I'll do. So while I've said that, I'm not quite ready to fix this problem or this thing that I see as a problem, because I'm invested in it, I'm enjoying it, and I'm trying to, I don't want to say I'm putting it ahead of my children. I'm trying to continue to balance the two, right? So what I can do at the moment, until I'm really at a place where I can get this pebble out of my shoe, I'm going to put some boundaries in place. And actually, I have already started putting some boundaries in place. So one of the things I did was, because like in school, I don't often go into the staff room at lunchtime because I find it a bit noisy and busy. And so I would end up just working through lunch a lot. And I just felt like I wasn't making strong enough connections with the people that I work with. So, really great people that I work with. So what I did was I actually scheduled into my timetable one of my non-contact times. I nearly said free lessons, but you can't say free lessons anymore because that people don't like to hear that either. One of my planning lessons, non-contact times, I scheduled that into my calendar as connection time. On my Microsoft calendar, that's scheduled. I will just go and sit in the staff room. Whoever is floating by, make a conscious effort to have the chats with whoever is floating about. And if that wasn't in my calendar, I could say till I'm blue in the face, I'm going to make more of an effort, and it wouldn't happen. All right? Do you know what I mean? So other things then was I put a rule in place that from 12 o'clock on Saturday and 12 o'clock on Sunday, my laptop was going away and not coming out again. And I did stick to that for a good while, and I did find it was good. And I was doing things like, like, because I get up very early in the week, like I'd have a little afternoon nap on a Saturday. Oh, jeez, it was amazing. It was amazing, like, just felt like it reset me again. And I was doing these things. But now, since I've started these revision classes, which are running at the weekend, I've really put myself back. I've really kind of, I feel undone some of the work that I was trying to do. And these revision classes were intended to be a short-term thing. I just thought, I want to buy a car. We've only got one car and a bike. And really, like I mentioned earlier, that we've got 3 kids in 3 different schools. I have a boy who has autism and won't walk across the road. And so we could do a second car. Like, I used to think it was a luxury, but actually I think maybe it's not such a luxury in our situation. And I want to save up the money, as much money as I can for it. And so the revision classes then are like, right, come on, let's go. Let's do this short-term thing. But I can't help thinking, okay, now in September, I'm going to do this and I'm going to roll out that and I'll advertise it here and I'll go into get the international students. I just can't help my brain going flying off.
Yeah, and that requires massive energy, Anita. And imagining that a lot of our listeners will be able to resonate with you, because I think that is a very common theme for us. Not just women, but I think for women who, I suppose, ambitious as well and creative. And, what I'm hearing in you is this a huge amount of creativity, actually, around the things that you want to create to offer as in service to other people, and all the ways that, other people can benefit from your knowledge and your skill set and all of what you have to offer, and how these things have worked for you. I am curious about other examples in your life. If you are to sort of rewind back through your life a bit and think about times when maybe there were pebbles in your shoe where you needed to make some changes in order that you can live more authentically.
Times in my life where I had a pebble in my shoe and I needed to make changes to live more authentically. Okay. So the bit, I suppose, that I am feeling the most there is to live more authentically. And I think that I might have learned early on that material things weren't going to be the most important thing in my life. And also that my authentic self needs to be inwardly and outwardly happy and positive and surrounded by like-minded people. So I think changes that I can remember making down through the years. I'm now very careful about the people I surround myself with. And there have been situations in my life where I was kind of naturally put in the same circle as people and became friends with people and had to kind of say, this person might be a pebble in my shoe and I need to kind of move away as subtly as I can, because, I wouldn't be one now I have no interest in confrontation. Like, I'm thinking about people who maybe didn't bring enough positive energy, and not just because they were having a bad day or not just because they were having a bad year, but people who were just generally moany. And there are people who just love you know, they're not happy unless they're given out. And I have made a conscious effort to remove those people, or to move them to the sidelines. And I would have had to do that in my younger days. And I think now, when I'm in my 40s, I am more careful about forming the friendships, because I think I'm a bit more discerning about spotting those people earlier and not allowing them into my circle in the first place. And I have found myself in situations like staff rooms can often be places where there can be a bit of moaning and giving out going on, school staff rooms. And I can remember one staff room in particular where I love going in there at lunchtime, because there was one woman in particular. She always had the inside story. She always had the good, she'd know everything that was going on between parents and students and management and everything. And it was generally kind of negative and moany, but it was exciting to be around. And I would have been in my maybe late 20s, I think, at this time. And I was very much drawn into that and loved the drama.
Yeah.
And it didn't serve me. And I removed myself from that, because a toxic work environment is so damaging. I had a headmaster once who used to talk about radiators or drains. You can be a radiator or you can be a drain. The choice is yours.
Lovely.
Yeah. So I hope I've answered that question.
Yeah, no, just curious, because you're so dynamic, you have amazing energy, Anita, and I resonate with your concern about sustainability as well. So I'm just curious about, is your sort of modus operandi, if you like, prior to this,
And Miffy, you said also that you think this, did you say about it resonating with other people? I think you said that. And I really do think that there are a lot of people, a lot of women and a lot of people in general out there who are juggling too much. And that culture of constantly out competing with how busy we are, it's not all just talk. We are taking on too much. We're putting our kids into so many clubs and activities. We also feel that we need to be all things to all people. And I think that there's many people out there who are running themselves ragged. And so I do think that while I find myself in this situation and not really wanting to change it just yet, I do think the time will come when I feel the need. I really do feel the urgency to change this. It's not there quite yet. I hope I can get to that point myself naturally and not have it forced upon me. But I do think there are a lot of people out there who are on this hamster wheel of constantly needing to be productive. The pace of life is just manic. It's manic busyness we all have. And while I said I am accepting of it for the time being, uncomfortably accepting of it, I do recognize the sacrifices, but I think there are also people out there who don't want to be in it, and it's not serving them. And how then do we break that cycle? And how do we, first of all, get the courage? And this for me now, this would require courage, okay? To get up on a Saturday morning and to sit and watch telly all morning long. How do we get the courage to just be okay with that? To be okay with that and not feel like I was going to say letting everyone down. It's not that. I never get the sense from the people around me that I would be letting them down. From my husband, from my kids, my mom, I would never be letting people down by getting lazy. So is it that I feel I would be letting myself down, or is it that I feel I would be missing out on something, or missing out on an opportunity, or not fulfilling my potential, or something? There's something stopping me from just chilling the F out and just being a little bit lazy every now and again.
You talked about lazy and equating it with that kind of having the courage to sit down on a Saturday morning and watch telly all morning, that would take courage, but that somehow equated to being lazy. And I'm curious about that. I'm just curious about what your thoughts are around that connection.
I don't know. What are my thoughts about being lazy? Like, you're making me think now, what's my story? What's my family history? Dig deep, like all this kind, you know what I mean? I genuinely don't know where this is coming from. And maybe down the line, it is something I'm going to have to do some work on and you know, go and find a counselor to help me with or something. Because I genuinely don't know where this is coming from.
And that's okay. And I didn't want to put you on the spot either, or make you feel that you had to dig deep into anything deeply personal. But
no, don't be worrying about
a couple of things came up for me when you were talking there. One was something that I've been saying for quite a number of years now, and that is that our grandmothers and great grandmothers probably too fought for us to have it all. They made sacrifices and stood their ground and protested and demanded that women have all these rights, which we have, and it's great, and we should have. However, now we have it all. It's actually too much, and I say that at risk of being lambasted, but that is the genuine feeling I have. Having been a mother of 4, having, you know, watched my own children have their own children and friends and so on. It's trying to have a career. Raising children is a career, and having a full-time job on top of that, and having side hustles because we feel we need to, or we want to, or a mixture of both. You know, that is so much. We have incredible capacity as women. The other thing that came up for me is something that a few months back, I was reviewing my journals for the last sort of 18 months or so. I find that reviewing our journals is as powerful as actually journaling. In fact, sometimes it's more powerful. But there was a couple of things that stood out very much for me. But one of them was that recurrent entries were talking about staying and being instead of going and doing.
Staying and being instead of going and doing. You need to break that one down
so
for me.
I would have done a lot and probably still do too much of it, but I'm learning to pull back a lot from the going and doing. We're always going and doing something, you know, and every space that's in the calendar is filled with something, because if it's not work related, well, there's an opportunity to go off and do something. So, you know, we're away for a weekend here or there, or, you know, my husband and I are blessed that we can do that. But that idea of actually just staying and being, you know, which could look like sitting in front of the telly for Saturday morning, or it could be just going into the garden and pottering or going for a cycle ride with the kids, or whatever it might look like for you personally. But that idea of staying and being rather than going and doing, because the going and doing has a freneticism to it, whereas the staying and being is actually not forcing anything. There's no productivity necessarily attached to it. You can be doing something while being, but that there's a presence to it, and there's a steadiness to it. So yeah, that's what came up just listening.
Yeah, I have lost that. I think in recent years, I think I've lost that ability to stay and be. You know, you said the word freneticness. Is that a real word, Miffy? Are we making it more?
I don't know. I think we actually have probably got a few new entries for the dictionary at this stage.
The dictionary, freneticness. I think I know what you mean, though, and that definitely, it does feel like there's a bit of that going on, and the staying and being instead of going and doing. I would definitely struggle. And look, you know, I don't want to be going over this boring narrative we're hearing all of the time about our phones and screens and all the rest of it, but it is part of it, isn't it? It is part of it that you know, you're stopped at traffic lights, and I don't just stare out the window anymore. I have a quick look at my phone.
It's a massive addiction.
Massive addiction, and it is feeding into this culture and this problem we have of manic busyness, of constantly going and constantly doing. And I said before that I need to have kind of things scheduled into my day to make sure they'll happen. And I do I do my 20 minutes of yoga in the morning, followed by like a 5 to 10 minute meditation. And I have my bike ride. I cycle into work 3 days a week. I take my bike to work. And so I have these times built into my day, but they are scheduled. It's like I've lost the ability to just chill and just like
Mm.
Yeah, and I know, you know, this idea of being lazy, is that what it is? Am I pushing back against being lazy? That I do my yoga and I do my meditation because it's good for me and I know that's what I should do. Hanging around without a purpose to me seems wasteful. And it shouldn't
Mm.
be.
Yeah, I tell you where my thoughts are going now, just in terms of this. When I was growing up, extracurricular activities didn't really, well, I'm not saying they didn't exist, but they certainly weren't a big feature in our lives growing up.
No. And if they were outside of the village, forget
Yeah,
it.
and if you lived in the countryside, your extracurricular was being down a river or up a tree, or what I noticed when my kids, when they were young, whatever, there was a lot of extracurricular activity. And now there seems to be even more. Like the kids are doing loads and loads and loads, and everything is scheduled and everything. And so free play, I'm thinking of this in kids' terms now, you know, that actually
Yes,
free play, free, you know, is actually
yes,
really
yeah.
good for kids' development. Let them off, let them discover, let them, you know, build huts, let them, you know, whatever, do stuff on their own without any direction or
Mm-hmm.
any structure. Just let them, you know, play by themselves and amuse themselves. So that's actually really good for them. And I'm wondering then about us as adults, have we lost the ability to, for that free play, for that just being in flow, doing whatever we want for a while anyway of a day, you know, that there's that. I get that out of things like baking and cooking.
Mm-hmm.
I get that sort of in that flow and groove, doing that kind of stuff, or gardening. But I'm curious about that
Yeah.
staying and being piece that we feel is
Mm-hmm.
missing, and it's really hard to access because we are almost addicted to going and doing, and that includes scrolling and, you know,
Yes.
uploading content and all of those things. And I suppose I'm just curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Miffy. I do feel I have lost the ability for free play. Yeah, completely. If it's not structured and if it doesn't have a purpose, then yeah, I'm not doing it. Um, I do think we have basically created a bit of a whirlwind and put ourselves at the center of it, and everything is manically spinning around. And what do we do? Do we?
Mm.
Am I over? Maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe
Mm.
maybe it's fine. Maybe it's the message out there that I need to look after myself and I need to look after my well-being. Maybe I'm taking it too seriously because I do feel fine. I don't feel like I'm about to have a nervous breakdown, you
There's a
know?
lot of food for thought in there, and I'm conscious that we're really talking about a very current pebble in your shoe, and it is a thread that's been there for you
Yes.
all throughout your life. You describe, you know, this kind of,
Mm. Most of my life. Not at
no,
all. Not at all.
yeah. And I would sort of often ask a person at this point in the podcast about what would your life look like if you hadn't paid attention to the pebble in your shoe. And so if I was to pose that question in the present tense to you, you know, if you don't pay attention to this pebble in your shoe, what might your life look like?
Um, I'm tolerating the pebble now with the intention that it is a time in my life that will pass. My mom has always said this to me, that there's something about your 40s, that when you hit your 40s, this manicness takes over of feeling like you have to be all things to all people and you have to conquer the world. I'm not, my mom is the only person that has said that to me. I'm not sure, is that a common thing among women? Is that something you're
I
familiar with,
know for
Miffy?
me, I'm in the next decade on from you. I'm 53. So I know that when I turned 45, well, actually turning 40 for me was a milestone. It felt like
Yeah.
my coming of age. I was disgusted when I turned 41. I was like, no, I like 40. Thank you very much. But anyway, but 45 was most definitely
Yeah.
a line in the sand when I'm a lot less tolerant of BS. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And just started doing what you described about extricating myself from toxic relationships more and more.
Yes.
So I think there is
Yeah.
something in that. I think there's definitely a cusp there
Your
for
40s.
us as women, maybe for men
Yeah.
too, but you know, where we just start to see things from a different perspective.
Yeah, and look, our hormones are
Sure.
changing. It's bound to have an impact on the way we think and the way we see things. So just to go back to your question again there, Miffy. So you were talking about the pebble in my shoe that's currently
If you were to
there.
continue to ignore the pebble in your shoe as it stands,
Yes.
what might your life look like?
Okay, I think I'd like to look at this from two directions, okay? Our perspective one is, what might it look like if I don't address this pebble in my shoe? I'd also like to talk about what it might look like if I do address it. Right. So if I don't address it, and I think I've kind of admitted that I'm only prepared to kind of chip away at it, I'll push it to the side of my shoe. I hope it doesn't annoy me too much. If I don't address it, what I think will happen is that I will continue on this hamster wheel for some time, carving out time for my family where I can and as much as I can. I think because I'm a teacher and in the summer, I would hope to have a reset, and that would help me to come back to having that time, which God, so many people don't get that. I think what I want to happen and what I believe will happen is that down the line, a few years down the line, my books will be selling, my courses will be selling, there'll be some passive income going on, and that I will be able to slow down and I will then be able to address this problem head on. Definitely have a concern that this is a self-created problem, and that even when I reach my goal, I'll create another goal. And so that's something I'm 100% going to have to be careful of, right? And Miffy, I need you to send me this recording in 5 years from now. I need to be held accountable. I need to be held accountable. So I need to make a commitment to myself that maybe I put a timeline, a deadline on this, and that there will come a time when I say enough is enough. And if I can't naturally take control of this kind of manic busyness, that I go and seek help and go and speak to somebody about helping me to get it under control. So is that what it's going to look like if I don't address it? Yes, that's what it's going to look like if I don't address it. I'm trying to keep my thoughts straight. The other one then was, what might things look like if I do? For me to manage this now, I would need to let some things go. I don't think I have to let everything go, but I have to let something go. I could make the choice to apply for a career break for next year, not the coming year, the year after. And then my daytime would be spent getting what are my side hustles, turning them into a thing and achieving my goal. Okay? And I've said this to me, feel like I love my job so much that I just can't imagine a situation where I wouldn't be doing it. So I would hope that I would get my businesses off the ground, and then they would be more running in the background and I would be able to go back and teach again. An alternative then is, if I don't put my teaching aside for a while and focus on my side hustles, do I let the side hustles go? All of them, some of them, what do I do? My revision classes, I've got 2 weeks left in them. I have to do some tuition anyway, because I work at a 75% timetable, because I like that flexibility. I mentioned my son has some difficulties, he's autistic, and it just takes a little bit more emotional energy and so on. So why do I need to rationalize my reason for having a 75% timetable? Ridiculous. Why did I need to do that? Anyway, 75% timetable in school. If I let my current, my maths exams expert, if I let that go, and just focused on efficient family life, which I believe is my big thing, that would definitely free up time. The flip side is, though, Miffy, that if I can be clever about how I use the maths exams expert, I could maybe use it to replace the grinds that I do, and look, I can't stop myself, Miffy. I can't stop myself planning. I'm going to have to let something go. I do, but I don't know. I don't know, Miffy.
Okay.
I like, you know, if you ask me in 12 months' time, well, Anita, how's it going? Have you, like, I'll probably be in the same situation. Like, I think it's becoming clear, isn't it, that I'm not fully prepared to tackle this. I'm not really prepared to give anything up. I want it all. But there always has to be
I think
sacrifices.
that's a really interesting statement there, though, that you want it all. And you're clearly so passionate about it all. And you can clearly see the value in all of the things that you do, but you're also very clear that it's not sustainable to have all of it. You have to let something go. And I suppose being mindful that also sometimes, well, I remember saying to my own coach early this year, I said, if I keep going the way I'm going, then the universe will probably just land me on my arse. And I said it in a kind of off the cuff manner, but it actually happened. It actually happened. And I remember thinking when it happened, and this was at the point then when I reviewed my journals, because my intuition had been telling me for a long time to slow down and to really pay attention to the pebble in my shoe. And by not listening, I have a chronic condition and it flared up and it absolutely sat me down and gave me a good talking to. And I had to listen. I really had to pay attention. And I suppose that's the piece then that I feel that, gosh, it was humbling, because I was sitting there going, I've known this. I knew this would happen. I even said it out loud to my coach that this would happen if I didn't do something, but I was complacent in my ability to keep the plates spinning, and they started to fall. Actually, they all fell down. I had to sit down.
Do you know, Miffy, that's exactly where I am, isn't it? That's exactly where I am. Yeah.
What is hopeful, though, about this, Anita?
Almost all of it feels hopeful. Okay. I love all of the things that I'm doing. I love it when I can make connections with people and feel like I'm having an impact on people's lives. I think that's so powerful for me. I suppose what's also hopeful, like my youngest girl is the biggest, that's the biggest thing, isn't it? Is that I worry about how much of me she's getting. What's hopeful for me there is that she's an absolute delight. And she's my youngest of three. So I do know that the way she is isn't usual. And I know from other people who know this girl very well, she's a rainbow child. She is an absolute treasure, a treasure. And that's not just me being biased. If you like, and everybody who knows her knows this about her. She's the kid that people want to have around for play dates because she makes everything easier. She's very special. I think that's in her and it shines out of her so strongly. I don't believe I'm going to break that. Can rationalize it a bit to myself, saying that even though I work hard, I don't believe it makes me a bad mum. This is hard for me to say now. It's definitely a bit emotional. She knows she's very much loved, and I think that she will be okay. And I think I'll be okay. I think I just need to figure out this time in my life and what's really important.
Absolutely, Anita. If you fast forward to when you've got all this pebble out of your shoe, what would you say now to Anita today? What would you say to yourself?
It really depends on how it pans out, because if I pull this off, I will look back and I will say, don't be so hard on yourself.
Don't be so hard on yourself.
You're doing just fine. Right? If I don't manage to pull it off, I'll look back and I'll say, you idiot, why didn't you just hear the story that Miffy told you? Why didn't you listen to what your intuition was telling you and slow down?
Wow.
We haven't resolved anything here, Miffy, have we?
Well, I don't know. I think that's a very powerful place to finish, Anita, because it's sort of in your hands and it's all to play for. But you just said how if you don't listen to your intuition now,
Yeah, this is the thing. And yeah, it is very powerful. And we didn't come on here to fix a
No,
problem, did
no,
we? We came on here to discuss a pebble.
yeah.
And, the reality is that we could talk about a pebble we had in our shoe in the past and how we managed to address it and how we managed to get that pebble out. But the reality is that many of us are currently dealing with pebbles in our shoes. All of us are, aren't we? And trying to navigate our way through this tricky situation that we found. Tricky situation. Look, I'm spoiled rotten. I'm tired. What am I? First world problems, Miffy. But trying to navigate our way through these situations, and we don't know what to
And
do.
it's messy. I think that that's actually the beauty of this conversation, is that it's not straightforward. It's not all wrapped up in a nice bow going, wow, that's, it's still a work in progress. And I really applaud you. Thank you so much, Anita, for showing up as you are with everything that it is, because we're doing the 28 days of gratitude together. I know that you're also hugely invested in positive psychology and the power of gratitude and all of that. And I know that about you. So I know that it's not just all mess. And I know that you value and appreciate your beautiful life as well.
I really
But
do.
what you're sharing is a very true and honest reflection of what happens internally with us,
Yes.
So thank you for bringing that to the podcast and sharing that with me and our listeners.
Thank you, Miffy. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. It has been tough, though, a tough conversation, but a good one and an important one. So thank you. You've certainly given me food for thought.
I am going to put in the show notes links to your Instagrams and your websites and details about your side hustles.
Yes,
we'll have those for the listeners as well. So thank you so much for showing up authentically here today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Pebble in My Shoe. I really loved Anita's in-the-moment approach to the pebble in her shoe. I resonate with her plight, and I imagine many of you, the listeners, will too. Toxic productivity is a modern-day problem, one that can't be resolved in one podcast. But maybe we can each work on it in our own lives where it shows up and collectively change the narrative as we go. Anita stated at one point how we just aren't designed for this manic busyness. I firmly believe our intuition communicates this with us, but in the freneticism, there's that word again, it really is hard to hear the nudges and the niggles that are telling us to slow down or even stop. So I invite you to take a moment to tune into your inner voice and have a listen to what it's got to say. Meanwhile, you'll find links to Anita's pages and books in the show notes. And if you've enjoyed listening, please like, rate and subscribe and share it with others. It makes it easier for other people to find the podcast, so I'm told. And if you have a story to tell about a pebble in your shoe, please get in touch. I'd love to talk about it with you for the listeners. As well as hosting this podcast, I run an online business called Daisy Coaching, where I provide one-to-one coaching for personal growth and well-being. You can subscribe to my weekly newsletter, where I share updates and developments, as well as inspiration and resources to support your own personal growth journey. You can visit my website, www.daisycoaching.ie, to find links to book coaching sessions and find out more about Daisy Coaching. I look forward to sharing the next episode of The Pebble in My Shoe with you. So bye for now.